As photographers, none of us love coming back from a shoot and having hundreds or thousands of images to sort through. Let's use artificial intelligence and have it do that automatically for us. Today, we're talking about AfterShoot. All right, hi there. Today I am with Justin Benson from AfterShoot. He's a wedding photographer who's also working with their team, and we're going to talk about AfterShoot and what it does for photographers, what it is, how it relates to AI and photography, which everybody knows is something I'm talking about all the time. So, Justin, I'm glad to have you here and to have the opportunity to chat with you.
Thank you so much for having us.
Fantastic. So let's start at the basics, right? For people who don't know about AfterShoot, what is kind of the elevator pitch? What is it and who's it for and what does it do?
Absolutely. So AfterShoot is an automated culling program. So using a series of 15 different machine learning algorithms, your AI, it's going to go through and categorize your images and select out images that we believe are the ones that you should edit. As far as our target users right now, anyone can use it. But really we focused a lot on any segments that have, people and detectable objects. And we continually are expanding our offerings to incorporate other types of photography like landscape and, animals and various different things. So
tell me about your typical wedding culling pre-after shoot. What did that look like for you?
Yeah. So pre-after shoot, it was a lot of procrastination. So I would get home from a wedding, I would download them to two separate hard drives. And then I didn't want to open them, right? You take, 4,000 photos, 3,000 photos at a wedding. And it's just a task, right? So going from, start to finish was photo mechanic before, just all manual, image by image, and just, hunker down. And I would honestly, I could do it faster, but it would usually take me a full day because I didn't want to do it, right? The whole time I'd be like, I'm going to do a little bit. And then I'd be like, you know what? It's a good time to go outside for a few.
Right.
So, as time went on, it was a big hindrance to my workflow. Just getting images sorted. I mean, it's a simple task, and there's no need for a person to do all of it.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, you come home with a bunch of images, and that it's not exciting work. It's not particularly interesting work for a photographer. I mean, at least for me, but it's something you got to do, and it takes a bunch of time. So, I mean, as I've been playing around with AfterShoot, you basically point the application at a folder of photos on your hard drive, and for testing it out this morning, I used a shoot that I'd done right before the COVID lockdown hit. It was like the first week or weekend of March 2020. I photographed a conference for the National Green Building Council. They had a green schools conference, and 2-day event. I was there a few hours each day. Anyway, so I had a little over 500 images, kind of source material for this shoot, and so I pointed AfterShoot to that folder, and I said, okay, do your thing, use all the culling options. I just went with the default settings to start out with, and it took it about 5 minutes to ingest all those images. They were all raw format, and then about 6 or 7 more minutes to kind of go through the culling process, and this is on my 4-year-old, Retina 5K iMac, right? So if I had a faster computer, it might go even faster, but 10, 12 minutes total, right? And not just is it making that pass through it, but it's kind of categorizing them, right? I mean, so why don't you maybe talk a little bit about the types of kind of culls and categorization and identification that the program does right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So of the 15 different machine learning algorithms we run like a detection for closed eyes. We, look at similar images and cluster them together. We look at blur, we look at emotion. There's just a range, composition, lighting. There's just so many different things that AfterShoot will run through on your images. And step one is really just clustering similar images together. So at the end of the day, if you take more than a single shot, and I mean, I think we are all pretty guilty of it. Have you ever taken your phone out and just taken 5 shots in a row, right? Like, right. I hope I get this. I don't want the blink or whatever. This is my one opportunity. So we'll stick those 5 images together in a grouping and then compare them all to each other, and then pull out the one that is the sharpest with the best emotion, with the eyes open the most, and just take those images and then give you a curated set of what we think is the best. And my favorite thing about AfterShoot is that, we don't make creative decisions. So you will find you'll get images where you're like, why did I get this image? I would have rejected this anyways.
Mm-hmm.
But it's because we aren't artists, right? The unicorns that run this software, right? We call them the magical unicorns. They don't actually have a brain, right? They are AI. They are not a human being. You could say, oh, that's a creative decision that they made. So we won't make those creative decisions. So if you have 5 identical images, all of them are out of focus, we still give you one because maybe you did it intentionally. Maybe there was
Right.
looks intentional when you've repetitively taken the same photo that's out of
Yeah.
focus. So there's
Right.
probably a reason you did it, or camera malfunction, and you probably still want it if it's a camera malfunction because that might be the only one you got.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different things that it looks at. One of the things that I found interesting was the grouping called sneak peeks. Talk to me about what that is.
Sneak peeks is my favorite. So they're all my favorite, right? I mean, everything we put into this app is heart and soul, like
Right.
it's user journey. We're, before we even go further, like the most important thing I think within our company is our beliefs, right? We believe in photographers. We love our photographers. I am a photographer, so it's a firsthand thing. So when
Mm-hmm.
somebody comes to us and says, hey, I wish it could do this, or hey, this feature would be really useful, I'm the guy who gets that request and says, yeah, you know what, that's a great idea. Or if it's not a great idea, hey, how can we do something that is a great idea based
Mm-hmm.
on that, to help enhance the whole product for our users. And so the sneak peeks actually it was just something that was born out of nothing, right? We had an idea, and we created this algorithm that would compare your images to images that have performed well on social media. And then it would say, hey, like these are the ones that maybe you'd want to consider posting. Now, is it 100% accurate? No, you're going to get a couple weird images that you would be like, why
Mm-hmm.
did I get this? But again, we're looking at all of social media and saying, hey, like someone posted a picture that had similar lighting or composition or subject matter. Like
Right.
we think that'll do well. So I'll say for me, I had a wedding that had like monster trucks, dogs, and tractors, and all of the dog pictures and the monster truck pictures, like it just pulled out a ton of those, and it was like, post these, right? So it'll pull stuff out through different parts of the day too. So if there's
Mm-hmm.
something that doesn't make sense, like you're like someone's dancing in a weird position or something, we'll probably still pull it because at some point an image of somebody doing something ridiculous, like splitting their pants on the
Right.
dance
Right.
floor,
Right.
probably did really well on social media. So again, don't take it verbatim, but definitely it's a cool algorithm just to say, hey, this is maybe an idea for you to post.
Right. Yeah. Help quickly find maybe some of the most interesting stuff, and I looked at that and I'm like, oh, this could be useful because, one of the things I'm finding now, people want those images right away. Right. And so photograph an event and they want a handful of representative good shots, by tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. or something, because they want to then use those for social media or put them in a press release or something. And, um, doing that manually is one thing where you just kind of scan through and go pick some of those out. But I mean, especially if I'm already going to use something like AfterShoot to help with that culling. I mean, if that program can identify a handful of images that are going to be, hopefully well received from a variety of things. And that's what I saw when I, have used it so far, is like, oh, this gives me a good variety of things. And the ones that it picks out typically are good shots. So that's been fun. So you kind of hit on the fact that right now, a lot of the kind of the groupings and decisions and things like that, they are kind of people based, which how do you see this playing out in other genres of photography?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do currently have users, who are using it in a variety of different ways. So we've had, some photographers who focus mainly on birds, and they're happy with the results. One of our AIs is, one of our magical unicorns is just object recognition, right? So it's looking at objects and trying to determine if those objects are in focus. But yeah, so we do have a pretty hefty roadmap for a small ragtag group of individuals. We have quite a lot of things coming down the line, and just to touch base in general on what we're kind of looking at in the near future is just
Mm-hmm.
animal detection, right? Just
Okay.
all different types of animals, so that we can say, hey, we've had dog photographers who do like dog shows come to us and say like, yeah, it's doing okay at this part, but it's missing this part. But again, it's not something that we ever really planned on. And now we said, okay, great. We know now, I hear you. And now I know what we can do and how we can kind of attack this problem and make it work. So yeah, so automotive photography, We have, a couple people who do like NASCAR and, that type of photography. And, they feel pretty good about the results. There's a couple instances where it's, not quite there because there's, again, that slight creative decision that, how much of the car when you're doing a panning motion blur shot is the right amount of the car. So yeah, there's a lot of things, but again, they're all just things that we tweak and work on because that's what we care about, right? Is when people say it didn't hit the mark, right? It didn't do what I wanted it to do for this. And that's when we say, okay, send us all the images and we're going to figure out how to do it the way you want it to be done.
Right. And yeah, and like you said, some of that is a creative decision, right? Where, one photographer may go one direction, another photographer may go another direction, and neither one is necessarily right or wrong. They just have different styles that they want to present or, or share. A lot of times I find when we look at a technology or a new technology, especially when it's early on, it's like version 1.0 isn't always super awesome, right? I mean, like, think about like version 1.0 of portrait mode on the iPhone, right? Which was like 5-6 years ago at this point, I think. I mean, it was okay. It was decent, but it would goof up the corner of eyeglasses on the sides of people's heads. And it would have some issues like that. And, Apple has, iterated on that, and, Google with Android has done the same thing with their version of it. And, and now 5 years later, it's pretty darn good. Right. I would imagine it's going to be the same types of things with, the algorithms in your product or in anything. And so,
yeah. I mean, I would say right now we're pretty happy with where we are, right? We're on 2.5. And our algorithms, they're pretty solid, right? I mean, across everything, weddings, again, very people-based things. But the most important thing is just that we don't know what people want us to do, right? Until you start using AfterShoot and you want something to, work a little bit differently, we can't have that answer for you because, no one came to us and said, hey, I need you to cull photographs of airplanes. I didn't really, I knew people took pictures of airplanes, but I didn't actually realize there's people who that's their photography career is just photos of airplanes. And they're like, yeah, I take like 13,000 photos in a day. And I was like, well, that's a lot of pictures to go through. I understand your need for us. What do you need us to do for you? Like, what's the best way to make this work for airplanes as opposed to people or dogs or, different things. So yeah, at the end of the day, where we at now, we're, the results are fantastic. There's always going to be those creative decisions and whatnot. But when you have just the baseline effort, we're really proud of what we've done so far. And yeah, now it's on to the next genre, right?
Yeah, and that makes sense. And, and realizing that, it doesn't have to be 100%. I don't know if perfect's the right term, but it doesn't have to be a 100% replacement for your photographer brain to be successful or to make sense. Right. I mean, I look at this sometimes with for example, the AI masking improvements that like Adobe has put into Lightroom and Photoshop and things like that. Right. And it's like, I mean, I don't know how many hours I've spent over the years doing masking in various scenarios. It's probably more hours than I want to even think about. And so, when they add like AI masking capabilities, it's like, okay, select subject or select sky or select, the objects or whatever. And it's like, did it get it 100% there? Maybe not. Did it get it 90% there? Yeah. And it got it 90% there, in 10% of the time that it would have taken me to get it 90% there. So, I mean, even if I still have to do that other 10% manually or the way that I would have done it previously, I've still had this net gain of a bunch of time in this. Right. And
yeah, that's a lot of what I've done as far as just looking at results for my wedding photography. Right. So I'll run it through my weddings. I used to do a lot more review because AfterShoot does learn from you, right? So as you start making decisions, we start gaining, some information from you. So, you can toggle it off if you don't want to share anything, but otherwise you share with us some thumbnails and we understand like, hey, you chose this photo and the emotion may have been better, but the focus was softer. And the one that we chose was sharper, but the emotion wasn't as good. And so we start realizing, hey, you'll tolerate some more blur if we have a better photo emotion wise or whatever it may be. So we start learning from you. And so for me early on, I did a lot of that culling, in AfterShoot. It's supposed to get you 90% of the way there, right? You're supposed to have a great starting point for a cull. And then instead of reviewing thousands of images, you're reviewing hundreds of images. So again, it's that time you gain back. You're not sitting there watching it run. You're like, hey, I get home from a shoot and I'll go pop it in and go eat dinner or go watch a TV show with my kids or whatever it is, something you can get back from it. But the last time I actually, checked the results a couple of weeks ago as far as how accurate we were, out of the wedding I delivered, 97% of the images were the ones that AfterShoot chose and 3% were the ones that I had to swap in or out, which a 97% accuracy over the course of a product is, I was blown away when I actually did those numbers way back on version, 1.0. I think we were in like the 40s, right? It was like 40% accurate.
Right.
So much work needed to be done. So to see it, 97% of the images delivered were the ones that AfterShoot chose was really cool to see.
Right. Yeah, that's great. And that's good to just see the product evolve and to understand kind of how it learns from the individual photographer. And so just, I guess, to kind of clarify for everybody. So it's software that runs locally on your computer. This isn't like a cloud service where like you're uploading all your photos and then AfterShoot processes them and sends them back. Right. So, is there a cloud component to it really at all? Or is it just in the feedback?
Yeah, so it's only the feedback. Nothing goes on the cloud. You do have to have internet every 2 weeks so we can make sure that your account's still live. But yeah, you can run it offline entirely. We have photographers who on their way home from a shoot, they got a 40-minute drive, so they'll set it up in the passenger seat to download, because we can ingest your photos, take them, put them on the hard drive and run the cull. And by the time they get home, they spend 10 minutes just sorting out some results and their session is ready to edit. So again, there's so many hacks and productivity things that we're able to do. And like the big goal, right, when we started all of this, the big goal was to just give photographers time back, right? How many of us just have such crazy schedules or too much going on, or we just need a little bit of time to not sit in front of the computer and just manually sort images, right? Or any of those hacks or solutions we can come up with that make photographers enjoy their lives a little bit more. It's amazing.
Exactly. Yeah, that all makes sense, right? And so from a workflow standpoint, you ingest the images into AfterShoot. It does its thing, gives you its selections. Talk to me about kind of how that would fit into a photographer's, normal kind of image processing workflow if they're using Lightroom or Capture One or some other system to kind of manage their images. And how does it work now? Is that kind of how you envision it working? Or are there changes planned in the future? How does that all fit in together?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So right now, our current workflow, you can drag and drop your images or point it at the folder and have them run through AfterShoot. You'll get to choose your settings, which again, there's, some explanatory, tidbits there for you to learn from. And then it'll run its cull and you could walk away from it, right? It's fast. It's pretty quick. As you said, 500 images in all of 6 or 7 minutes. For me, I can run, thousands of images from a wedding, the night of the wedding, and I wake up and then the main idea is to review your images in AfterShoot so that learning process can take place, right? So you're looking at these clusters that are kind of stuck together, and you're able to go in and just review, reject some stuff that you don't need. Again, those creative decisions. For me, it's always like the picture of my foot when I'm walking around, because I just always do that at least once every time I take my camera out.
Totally.
And then once you finalize those decisions, they're just XMP sidecar files. So you are able to actually just open up any software that uses XMPs. So, Adobe Bridge, Capture One, Lightroom, and import all of the photos if you'd like and filter by the ratings. Or from within AfterShoot, you're actually able to single click and get those opened up, only your selected images in your editing software as well. Or you can copy them, move them, rename them, whatever you see fit for your final images. So for me, my personal workflow, I love to just take all of my images into my editing software, because that's where I just have it all there. And sometimes I do my manual portion of the cull, and then I get into editing and then I go, I think I want to see if there's a different version of this, because now that I see it bigger, I'm not sure if it's really what I wanted, or there's something a little bit off, like a bug that I didn't see flying in someone's face, or there's always those few. So instead of having to go look for it, it's all there. So that's my personal preference. But again, everyone does it a little bit differently, and that's what we kind of designed AfterShoot to do, is be individual to the user.
As photographers, we work with these different apps that all, some play nicer with others than others do. But it's always nice when you don't end up having to do things in silos. And so, I could see where it would be super frustrating if, like, okay, well, I used AfterShoot to do a cull, but like all I got out of it was just the photo files. And then when I was in Lightroom or something, it was like starting from scratch because I didn't really have any of that metadata. So yeah, I think that is important for people to know, is that, as it identifies, oh, these are potential duplicates, or these look like maybe they're out of focus, or these are, the best, the sneak peek, the best of the best or whatever, that you can, and it does this by default, that, you can tell it, okay, give these a certain star rating or give these a certain color flag, for future work. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, nice. We wanted to make sure we played nice with all the other software. So, just like you said, like if your images are in Lightroom already, there is a way to still cull them. So you just have to write some metadata so your edits are saved, and then you can swing it all back over and have it run in, and then just read the metadata from the files. And again, that was important to us, is that nobody has a set workflow, right? I think I don't know about you, but me, I'm stubborn, right? As soon as I have a workflow that I like, right, you have to pull me out of that workflow and force me to do it. And that's what we did with AfterShoot, is just said, hey, no matter what your workflow is, you can do it still, right? You can do it however you want to do it within our software. Everything's customizable, keyboard shortcuts, everything. So you're not tied to what we tell you have to do. You can do it however you prefer to do it.
I could see some photographers, looking at this and be like, oh, well, I wish this was built into Lightroom or Apple Photos or, whatever, Capture One. But like the reality is, like, it's not at this point. Like, we don't have that. I mean, I got to say that the image management and organization features, are not necessarily something where I feel like a lot of the other companies out there are investing a lot of their effort.
There's other things that they're focused on. And this was a simple one, right? I mean,
for a photographer looking to get into it, I mean, so what, I guess the other kind of big question everybody always has is like, okay, so how much is this going to cost me, right? So what is the, what is the AfterShoot model as far as, pricing, standalone subscriptions? I mean, I took a look at it. It seems fairly straightforward to me, but, kind of how do you feel that, that all plays out?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are a subscription-based service. That was the thing we knew from day one, because we're never done. We're a team of 12 right now, and we pretty much hire new people every few weeks when we, start expanding into the next realm and the next thing. And, there's a lot of moving parts and things going on at the same time. So we went with subscriptions so that it wasn't going to turn into like that photo mechanic where you buy it and then it just sits there and that's it. So we wanted it to constantly improve, and that's, always happening. Even if you're not culling, we're still sitting here looking at all of the images that we can and running through scenarios where we feel like we're missing the mark and finding ways to improve it. So we're not just done, we're just making it better constantly. So that's why we focus on subscription based. And now we do have two different tiers. There is a free option. So if you want to cull manually as if you would in a photo mechanic, and you would still get the enhancements of the closed eye detector and the blur detector, that's 100% free, right? We decided that, paying money for something like a photo mechanic, we're doing that, and it takes no extra effort. It's done, right? It's finished. Right. So that's for free. Go ahead, have at it, use it. But then all the other emotion and, clustering of the images and all that sort of stuff, that would come in our subscription plan, which is $120 a year. Or, you can do it monthly if you'd like, but.
Good deal, right? So yeah, so about $10 a month if you pay yearly or whatever. I mean, again, for a professional photographer, $10 a month is not, not a burdensome fee.
Yeah, what we always say to everybody, right, is if you paid somebody to cull one event, you'd probably be paying, 3 cents an image at 5,000 images or whatever it may be.
Right.
you almost, pay that in a single cull.
Right.
Again, you still have to do some work. It's not
Yeah.
100% free, but I
Right.
mean, I'm not 100% there,
Right.
but for reducing your time while doing it just by that much for the cost of what one person, you'd probably still have to review their work anyways,
Mhm.
would cost. It's well worth that. It's the assistant that you didn't know you needed for a
Right.
price that's cheaper than everyone else.
Yeah, it definitely seems worthwhile. And now I'll go ahead and mention kind of a special deal here, right? So, and I'll drop this down below as well. But if you do sign up for the paid plan, if you use the code TechPhotoGuy, that'll get you 10% off. So, already quite reasonably priced. You can save a few extra dollars there. That also gives me a nice, referral commission that helps me, keep spending my time making these videos and things like that for everybody. So be sure to use that code TechPhotoGuy, and it'll save you 10% if you do sign up for that paid plan. So yeah, so good deal. I mean, and that all makes sense, right? I mean, we're photographers. We're used to paying money for the tools that help us out, whether that be a camera or a lens or a bag or whatever that may be. I mean, heck, you probably spent more than that on gas getting to the event, with gas prices where they're at right now, than you would on your photo culling software. Good deal. So you already kind of gave us a little bit of a talk about what's ahead. And
yeah, no, there's a lot of stuff on our roadmap. So like I mentioned it before, we don't just end in one place. Some of the stuff I can't even say because I'd probably go to jail or whatever the paperwork I signed says. But yeah, there's a lot of really cool things. And again, a lot of it just is coming from our users, right? They're just saying, hey, I really wish you could do this. And they think it's a small ask. But then 4 months later and, 5 guys working day and night for it, we figured it out, right? So it's that the small ask, but so a lot of the stuff we're doing is just, it's new, right? We're working on algorithms and things that don't exist. There wasn't a photo culling software before. There's bits and pieces that we can learn from others and whatnot, but there hasn't been a software that's been able to say, hey, this is your best photo. That's not an AI natural thing, or at least not being able to do it well. I mean, I know there was some predecessors that just didn't hit it on the head. So to be able to do it well, it's taking a lot of energy and it's exploring new realms. We tried something for 3 months, and at the end of the 3 months, it didn't work. It was 3 months lost, but it was just, we went down the rabbit hole and tried all these different things. And then magically we came back and revisited it in a week of retweaking. We got it and we hit it on the head and we were like, okay, great. That's fantastic. It's something that no one else has ever done before. And here it is. Being subscription, you always have the latest version of the software. So every single update you get, and we release updates about every 4 to 6 weeks with improvements to the machine learning, improvements to the app itself, new features, all different things. So we're always constantly, like I said, just pushing that barrier. So yeah, I mean, I personally did not start photographing to cull images. And I was really surprised. Again, it's not a conversation that many people have, right? Like no one's like, hey, how are you going through your images? Right. It's not at the forefront. And I was surprised at how many people still actually just do it in Lightroom. And I was like, that's, I couldn't imagine ever just culling my images in Lightroom. The amount of load time, I did the math, right? For how long it was taking on average for me to actually move from image to image in Lightroom versus using something like AfterShoot. And I saved like 3 hours, right? Just by not using Lightroom. And I was like, you are literally losing 3 hours of your life waiting, 0.5 seconds for the next image to load or whatever it may be.
Right. Yeah. Lightroom has not been the most performant. They keep releasing updates where they make it a little bit better. And I mean, they're making progress, but it's still not great, to the point where, I mean, yeah, people use things like Photo Mechanic, which is not awesome overall, but it's very, very fast, right? That's the big advantage that it has. And so, I like kind of where AfterShoot has landed, which is that it's fairly fast and it also, it does this other stuff as well, right? It's not just running through the images, it's running through the images, doing a bunch of stuff automatically, and then letting me take that data to Lightroom or to Capture One or to Bridge or wherever else I'm going to,
get you started, right?
Yeah,
That's the goal.
get going on it, right?
Get you further along than you would be if you had to do it yourself. So
sweet. I think it's a good example of, artificial intelligence benefiting photographers, beyond just kind of like, how do I do some cool artistic effect with this image, right? Which is what we usually think of, right? It's like, oh, okay, I want to, it's cool that Adobe has a neural filter where I can take like a summertime photo and make it look like winter. I mean, that's fun to play around with.
Yeah.
But like, that's not necessarily really solving a business problem most photographers have, right?
Yeah, and that's kind of, where I think that AI needs to put some attention is, we're right now, don't get me wrong, I think it's amazing, right? Like all the neural filters and everything, I think that's so cool, but I don't need them right now, right? I don't, and I don't, yes, 100%, there is a use for that stuff, like the sky masking, and that's amazing. That's a game changer, right? That's a huge help to me. But I spend less time changing the sky because I use Flash. So for me, I don't usually change the sky. So it's not that big of a benefit to me. Or even if I did need to change the sky, I'm not going to do it on 500 photos. Whereas sitting down and just doing a mundane task, is the worst. I'd have more fun changing a sky out than I would sitting there looking at, 5,000 photos, figuring out which ones to edit. So again, there's usefulness, there's a play towards, users being able to do something better with their time, because I don't know about you, but for me, there's a million things going on in the business. It's emails, it's marketing, it's accounting, it's, it's all of the things, it's shooting, it's editing, it's all of it put together. So if at least one of those pieces can be a little bit faster or a little bit, less involved with myself, that's amazing. And AfterShoot kind of swoops in, and it literally just, it takes a day of work away from me every time. Every single, wedding that I shoot, I've gotten a day back, which we opened up in Connecticut. I'm in Connecticut. We opened up last year. So we had, with all the reschedules from COVID and everything, we had 85 weddings with me by myself. That's 85. That is exactly 45 more than I ever would want.
Right. Yeah, that's a lot of photo culling.
Exactly. So yeah, I think I ran around 300,000 images through AfterShoot so far in 2021, that's a lot of pictures to go through.
At least in the near term, who knows what the case is going to be 30 years from now, right? Nobody can imagine that. But, when we're talking 2 years out, 5 years out, 10 years out, AI is going to have a huge impact, but it's going to have a huge impact in the things that, like we've been talking about, the things we do over and over again in very similar fashion, right? It's going to have, if your photography business is doing the exact same thing over and over and over again, yeah, maybe you can get automated. But, the reality is, for most photographers, we're doing a mix of some of those maybe repetitive things, whether they be, image culling or technical things with a camera, but then we're bringing our creative spin to it, right? And that's really what the clients are hiring you for. They're not hiring you because you can make a proper exposure. Yeah, that's kind of the table stakes, but they're hiring you because of what you then do with that proper exposure and the types of photos you make with it. And so the more things that we can automate that don't involve that, which is really where the value is in being a professional photographer, the better, because then you can focus on that stuff.
So. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. There's 100% that, and I have to agree with you entirely, right? The way everything is headed, you can automate everything, right? But you'll never automate the creative, right? And we know that, we acknowledge that going in.
Right.
We'll never be 100% accurate, because if you made a single creative decision on your shoot, we're not going to be the ones to be able to figure it out, because AI isn't creative, right? You can't teach AI to make a creative decision, or at least make it consistently and well. And that's part of where we come in. And just like you said, you could have the easiest to use camera that knows everything from head to toe. It could automate the whole process. But how are they going to make your clients laugh? Or how are they going to find a unique composition that, you would only find by like walking over and seeing a puddle on the ground and realizing that you go low and shoot high and get the reflection in the whatever it is in the puddle. So, there's a lot of things that will never be replaceable. within that industry. And I think that's just to broaden it out even further, that's the question that people like, I'm getting undercut by this person left and right. But really your skill set, the value you provide as a photographer will surpass the person who's charging less. You will always be, as a photographer, surpassing the people who, the AI that's going to try and take pictures for you, or, the robot that walks around the party doing, photo booth pictures where everyone has, a double chin, or no one's there to say, hey, lift your chin up and then like smile and then make a silly joke and get everyone laughing. So we won't be replaced. AfterShoot's not here to replace you.
In
30 years, who knows? In 30 years, there may be photographer robots walking around. But yeah, I just don't see AI is here, again, to just help solve problems that are at hand and not replace you in those problems.
Totally. Yeah. And, and I think, again, like I said, I think AfterShoot is a perfect example of that, because it really is one of those things where you can't legitimately look at like the results that you're getting, that I got, that you're talking about, the 97% accuracy rate. And then, you're able to go in and fill in that extra 3%. You can't legitimately look at that and be like, oh yeah, the client's missing out. It's like, well, no, the client's getting a photographer who had to spend less time on that back end stuff that doesn't involve the client, so that he can spend more time focused on the client, right? Like the client's getting a gain from that. Yeah.
I think honestly, it can boil down with the 85 weddings last year. It really did boil down to, I still am, editing still that backlog.
I'm sure you are.
Right? Yeah. I'm still going through it all and working my way through it. But I think the important thing to note is that had I not had something to cull, I probably would have just lost it. Right. Like, I mean, even in a mental space, having to cull 300,000 images over the course of a year, like that's a number that's, I couldn't imagine even having to take a stab at that number. So again, not doing it, my clients didn't necessarily have a direct benefit, right? They're not like, oh yeah, our photographer delivered everything faster. It definitely was faster because I didn't spend 3 days a week culling instead, but there's definitely benefits to it. But at the same time, I was able to show up to 85 weddings with a smile on my face, not exhausted and ready to go, right? I was able to take days off where I wouldn't have been able to take days off before, simply because something just helped make my job easier. So again, like you said, it could be taking on more clients. It could be marketing better. It could be, editing more, whatever it may be. There's a variety of reasons that it can fit into the puzzle. But it's such a small cost that, no matter what the reason is, whether it's your happiness or, you're spending time with your family.
Yeah. Take some time off. Right. Yeah. I mean, if you can free up a half a day after, each wedding weekend, and you get another half day more to, go play golf or go spend time with your family, or, go fishing, whatever it is you're into. Right. Like, is that worth, the few dollars a month that AfterShoot costs? Probably,
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Like
that's the funny, we all get into this industry looking at all the amazing things that we're like, oh yes, I'm going to go, like, I can't wait to go hang out and like have my own schedule and my own boss. I can do it. And then how many of us just sit behind the computer working all the time? Like, it's just, we never live out that dream, but this is at least a step in that direction. We're going to be able to give you a little bit of time back, and you can then take that time and maybe go do something that you've been putting off. Go for that hike or whatever it may be. So
exactly. Good deal. All right. Well, if folks want to check out more, they can go to aftershoot.com. As I mentioned previously, if you use the code TechPhotoGuy when you sign up, that'll save you 10% on that paid account. Thank you for your time, Justin. It's been great chatting with you. I'm sure folks are going to, head out there, and the other thing we didn't mention, I don't know, is, there is a free trial on that paid account too. So I think it's 2 weeks. Is that correct?
Yep. 2 weeks.
Good deal. So 2 weeks.
Try it out.
Yeah, 2 weeks to use all the features. I would encourage you to maybe go play around with it the same way that I have been, which was, go back to some of your past shoots and, feed it into AfterShoot and see what it does. And, see how close is that to what you would have done or what you did. Right. And, I was pleasantly surprised. I will admit I was a little skeptical at first. It's like, well, let's see how this really works out, but it's pretty solid. So thank you again. It's been great chatting, and hopefully, we can get out there and once again, figure out how we can use these robot powers for good. Right. So
that's what we're here for. Thank you so
deal.
much for having us. Thank you everyone for watching and listening about
Fantastic.
Again, we're always available. Reach out. We love our users. So
good deal. Great. Cool. And as always, everyone, please feel free, hit that subscribe button down below. I'll have another video here on YouTube next week. And we'll be talking about some cool tech photo thing at that point, as we always do. Take care.